For the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you take roll?
Mayor Beagle is excused. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Present.
Councilmember Behrman.
Present.
Councilmember Gotchel.
Here.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox is excused. Councilmember Sharp.
Present.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. City Manager Brown or Assistant City Manager Benson, any changes or additions to the agenda tonight?
None, sir.
Any from the dais? Okay, great. We have no items of correspondence tonight, and so we'll call, approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes. First one is for the special study session of August 8th, 2023. Any additions, corrections, or editing? Motion approved?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the special study session minutes of August 8th, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, second set of minutes is the regular city council meeting of August 8th, 2023.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion? Support. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. We have no items of correspondence tonight, which brings the first call of the public. I will read the rules to the call of the public. Public shall address the council during the call of the public, which will be included on the agenda immediately after the correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call of the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person should not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present, and persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state the reason for addressing the council. All comments made by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public? All right, seeing none, we will go on to the city manager reports. We have the department monthly report for July 2023. Any comments? Councilman Sharp?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question for Mr. Sikma. I noticed on the overtime report that there's some noxious weed mowing, and several of them, and I know the DPW's stretched pretty thin, so I assume we're charging back all those property owners for when we the time and capital equipment costs to mow the noxious weed, mow the noxious weed. Noxious. Mow the noxious weeds. Yes.
You are correct, yes.
We charge them back.
We
Okay.
charge them, we do that on overtime, actually, and we charge each property owner for the equipment and then also the DPW time that's committed to that particular property. It's averaging, I don't know, a regular residential would, depending on how long it takes, would be right around between $100 and $150 per mowing, and some of the industrial ones that we do can cost as much as $500.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Sorry, I haven't done that. Probably is Director Sikma also.
Sure.
Is actually referring to the Parks and Rec report.
Yes.
The disc golf course, I read that the brush is cleared. Or is the DPW work complete for the disc golf course? And we're just looking for getting contracts let for the concrete pads and the tee-off pads and signage. Is that correct?
That is close. So we do have some wood chips that we're putting down on the final 2 on the far, what is that, the south end of that area that we haven't gotten in yet, but we're getting volunteers that are helping us with that. So it's moving along quite well. We're not quite sure exact locations of the concrete pads right now because they're suggested different areas to move to, so we haven't quite narrowed that down yet. But once we would, we're anticipating that we would use our sidewalk contractor for that work, and we already have a contract with them for that, so we would probably, we're trying to get that in yet this fall.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
And then along the same lines, at Gunner Matala, the two courts that are being torn out and put in 8 pickleball courts.
Yes.
Those contracts are about to go out, is that
So those,
right? For
those
bid?
are out
Is
to
it
bid
out for
right
bid?
now, yes, and I believe we're shooting for, maybe not this next council meeting, but the 2 council meetings from now, we'll have a recommendation for you that, for the contracts of that. It's out to bid right now, I think it's due the 31st, so the one next after the 31st of August.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question for, this is probably for Mr. John from F&B. Good evening.
Good evening.
I noticed that for the second month in a row, while we have the effluent data for our plant, there has
PFAS
not...
or Tribar?
Yeah, but there
It
has
just,
not been any data.
We had just done annual sampling for, it's one of those sampling events that we mandatorily make all the companies that are on the IPP program to go through our lab of our choosing. So it took a little extra, but I have the data. It just arrived a little after the report was prepared, so I wasn't able to get it. The July one, they still have a little more time to get in, but the June ones were, as before, less than 1.9 for Plant 4 and less than 2.0 for Plant 5.
Okay, so consistent
Yep.
with the April, May readings?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the explanation. All right. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
Support.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Great. All right, we'll move on to the first item of unfinished business. First unfinished business is recommendation to accept a permanent road easement along Beck Road granted by the property owner at 29201 Beck Road for the future Beck Road project for a total cost of $21,175 to be paid from account number 250-551-971-000. Have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Mr. Sigma.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, so we did a little bit more research on the property and the $4,300 that we had offered the property owner for that. And basically what that covers is the parking that is currently paved for three separate parking spaces for that. And one of the questions that was raised during negotiation was how they would ingress and egress that property. And because of the traffic patterns on Beck Road, the safety aspects of it, they need to approach Beck Road forward in a forward motion, so they need a turnaround area for that. And additionally, when we accept a portion of easement, we need to offer them another area for parking. We're not offering the parking, we're just offering the payment of the asphalt for that parking. So that's what that $4,300 was for. And it was fair and equitable, and that was described in the added report that you have in front of you. I'd be open to questions if you have any.
Thank you. Looking at, it's labeled page 43, so it's obviously from the appraisal report, but it mentions in there, the final paragraph of parking spaces, it says, in addition, the paving It is probably, it should be is. The paving is nearing the end of its life and paying for new asphalt offsets any bonus the old parking spaces may have provided. So are they saying that 4,300 does not, that's not the bonus for us taking a portion of that pad?
It's simply for the cost of replacement for the pad that we're taking.
Okay.
And it, yeah, it didn't take into account, whether the age of it per se. It's not a replacement in kind. It's a replacement, and it was based on costs from, within the proposal.
But we're paying for essentially new pavement. We're paying a new pavement rate, and that is like a 50-year-old crumbled pavement situation. In the documents that I noticed or that I read through for that, it's a piece of fair and equitable. If it's existing, we need to replace it, and you would have to replace it with new at that point. Looking at the costs for it, just the asphalt, based on what we were paying for, it's just for the asphalt, not to install it or anything else, is about half that. But with installation and whatnot, it seemed to be a fair number for what was being replaced. And again, it needs to follow the MDOT standards for that, and we're trying not to make any extra eyebrows open when we're accepting grant opportunities in the future. So we're trying to make it all as equitable as possible for each of the property owners. Yeah, I'm probably still a no on this. I think realistically, as we're going through this, and we have one later on the agenda to do, and we're gonna have a bunch more, I think we need to reevaluate, or before we approach the property owners, we need to be evaluating what's done. This was a question after the fact. It'd be very difficult to go back to them and say, we're gonna pay you less. But I think we need to dig into this kind of stuff. Like the later one that we're voting on, we're taking fence and signs and that kind of thing, actual improvements. They haven't touched that asphalt for decades. And so it could have been that we're not going to pay them for that because they're not really losing anything. It's actually an opportunity to gain, if anything, because it's less for them to maintain. And then on the flip side, if we can start working this to our advantage to get rid of kind of light appearance things like that, because it's been decades. That driveway is probably older than I am, to be honest. And so we could be telling them, we'll compensate for this, but you need to get your whole driveway redone, because it is a form of light. It looks horrible. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I support the motion. I think we got bigger fish to fry along Beck Road. But I just, for my education, owners could just take the 4,300 and do anything they want with it, right? They don't have to put in another pad. We're just paying them because at one point in time they used it and put it in. Okay, thank you.
Are we good? Okay. Okay, we have a recommendation to accept a permanent road easement along Beck Road granted by the property owner at 29201 Beck Road for the future Beck Road project for a total cost of $21,175 to be paid from account number 250-551-971.000. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gaccio? 4 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Clerk. On to new business. New business item number 1. There's a recommendation to approve the purchase, installation, storage, and maintenance of holiday lights from Christmas Decor of Wixom, Michigan at a cost of $16,200 per year for 3 years from the Downtown Development Authority Downtown Dazzle account number 248-729 956.013. Motion?
So moved. Support.
We have a motion and support. EDA Director Laura Cloutier.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Downtown Development Authority used Christmas decor last year, a last minute bind that we were in because the previous company said at the last minute they couldn't do it. I did receive one other quote from a company out in Bloomfield Township. It was $19,000 just for 1 year. I thought $16,000, $200 for 3 years locked in was a pretty good deal considering they're here in Wixom. They will come service the lights if there's any need to restring something or lights go out, you name it. So they'll be on site, on call. They'll store the lights for us. They'll buy new lights within the next couple of years of this contract with the growth of the trees. They'll use a lift to put the lights on this year. Last year they didn't because they had to do it in a short amount of time. So that's about it.
Councilman Fairman.
Yes.
Just 2 questions. First, will they be on by Halloween again?
Maybe.
I knew I beat you to it. Second question, though, I remember the contract with the other company that kind of bailed on us.
Yes.
Also said that we own the lights. Did we ever get
Yes,
those?
we got those back, and I gave them to Christmas Decor last year, and they tested everything and used the lights that were good. Come to find out, the previous company that we used, the last year we used them, tore the lights off the trees and broke a lot of the lines. So there were not a lot of lights usable last year, so Christmas Decor replaced what we had already.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if they would be useful for something else or.
No.
Okay. Fair enough. You answered my question. Thank you.
Councilman Sharp.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Following up with on the Councilmember Behrman's question, when will they go on? Do you expect them?
We don't have a date for the installation yet. Once this is approved, I'll set up a date, but my instructions will be for them to be turned on the night before Thanksgiving. That's
Okay.
usually when we turn them on.
I can support that. I know that I got outvoted every year as being a Scrooge, but
No.
We could be known as like the Christmas town of Oakland County or something.
Thanksgiving sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we want to be a Hallmark movie, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I had one question, just following up on the maintenance part of it.
Mhm.
I know that we had some heavy windstorms the past couple of years,
Mhm.
and strings were dangling and blowing in the breeze after those windstorms. Does this include rehanging if necessary?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so they'll come out with their lift and, or ladders or whatever's
Yeah,
appropriate?
Yeah, I assume in the snow, a lift probably, they won't be able to drive one on the snow, but they have their poles and
Okay.
stuff, so. Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we have recommendation to approve the purchase, installation, storage, maintenance of the holiday lights from Christmas Decor of Wixom, Michigan at a cost of $16,200 per year for 3 years from the Downtown Development Authority Downtown Dazzle account number 248-729-956.013. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Second item of new business, we have a recommendation to authorize the retention of Plant Moran PLLC of Detroit, Michigan as the city's auditors for a 1-year period covering the regular audit of fiscal year 2022-2023 at a cost not to exceed $70,800 and an alternative CSL-FRF compliance exam at a cost not to exceed $15,000 and approve the related budget amendment. For the motion?
Support.
All right, we have motion support. Do we have, Mr. Brown, do you have, or no?
I would defer to Finance Director Marilyn Stanford.
Very good.
This is our standard annual request for approval to retain the services of Plant Moran for the previous fiscal year that we just completed. In addition, this year, we will also have a CSL-FRF examination, which is basically a little bit easier than a single audit, which typically you would see when your federal funding exceeds $750,000. The reason for that is the ARPA funding that we utilized this past fiscal year, which exceeded that dollar amount. And that is the reason why I have allocated that $15,000 to the wastewater fund to be expended out of there, and that budget amendment that I'm requesting, because that's the fund that benefited directly from that ARPA funding. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No questions, okay. So we have a recommendation to authorize the retention of Plant Moran PLLC of Detroit, Michigan as the city's auditors for a one-year period covering the regular audit of fiscal year 2022 to 2023 at a cost not to exceed $70,800, and an alternative CSLFRF compliance examination at a cost not to exceed $15,000, and approve the related budget amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Third item of business is a recommendation to accept Hubble, Roth & Clark's proposal for design engineering services for a sidewalk improvement project along the north side of 12 Mile Road between Napier and Helford Boulevard for a total not to exceed $20,280. A sidewalk improvement project along the north side of Pontiac Trail between Chambers and Wixom Road for a total not to exceed $28,590, and for the West End Commons area for a total not to exceed $40,110, and approve the associated budget amendments. Any motion?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
We have a motion and support. Mr. Sickma.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, what you have before you is three different projects that we were looking at as part of our sidewalk pathway gap program that we've been working on over the last several years. The one is on 12 Mile South, and the other two are part of the DDA. As far as I know, the DDA has agreed with this. With the designs for their portions, and the other portion would, for 12 Mile, would come out of the sidewalk funds specifically. And we think that, yeah, these are priority projects for us to do, and we recommend HRC for these the designs of these particular projects.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm okay with the first two on the sidewalks. The West End Commons, I didn't know we were far enough along to be doing design engineering, but when I read the proposal, it seems to be more of a, we've got this broad vision, and now we're trying to distill it down into something more concrete, so to speak, where we could take it out to firms and they could look at how much, what kind of soil do we have, how much concrete do we need, where are we putting water lines, and no restrooms, I guess, in there. Can you help me understand a little bit more about the West End Commons, what the $40,000 is for the West End Commons design engineering? I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to understand which stage this is. This is like we just had a green field, and now we're starting. What would you call this first? I wouldn't really call it design engineering. It feels like we're almost done versus where it's almost conceptual engineering of what the land would bear almost, rather than what it's actually going to be.
I can speak to that a little bit better, and also Mr. Darga from HRC is here if there are more technical kind of things that we could add to this, but you're pretty close to what the situation is for the West End Commons area. Part of the reason that we're bringing this proposal forward now and the DDA approved to recommend this expenditure is in anticipation of the two potential funding sources that we are in the running for, both the federal funding as well as the State of Michigan's RAP grant funding. And we thought it would be advantageous to begin the engineering process and really get a better handle on what are the conditions on the ground. We know that there's a sewer main that runs underneath there, but and we've gotten these very nice kind of landscape architectural renderings, but there's a lot of work that goes into how it will function, and also really what the design process will look like depending on what funding we do secure or we don't secure. which would then, reveal how that process plays out. And my understanding is that there's a little bit more built into that particular budget for, I'll say, the engagement process on, as we work through really designing that. I would anticipate, more meetings, whether it's with City Council or whether it's with the DDA or whether there are other kind of outreach opportunities. That's a little bit more involved than, a traditional sidewalk project. So I believe that all of those pieces are why that particular project's.
Yeah, it's almost like a feasibility study almost at this point, rather than design construction, or design engineering. It's like feasibility. In my mind, that has meaning different than breaking ground or something like that. So
The ability to be able to translate those concepts into, with all of the utilities and things that could be involved.
engineering reality. Okay. No, I'm good. Thank you. I support all three of those.
Councilman Gutschall.
Thank you. Along the same lines with the West End Commons, if we don't get either grant funding, are we still doing this project?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is the DDA did budget $200,000 of its own dollars to contribute towards a project. So theoretically, some portion of this could be done. Alternatively, I think it would be a very good conversation of how do we scope back the project, how do we reorganize this project as we approach other funding sources. I think our intention here, and having the engineering hand makes it easier to do, is continuing to pursue different grant funding opportunities. There are a variety of things that we can go for. And we would have the ability to sort of tailor this to fit those pots of money, depending on what the circumstances are.
So looking at the scope of services for West End, it says the estimated cost of these improvements is $500,000. Is that for everything or just for the concrete work?
I will defer to Mr. Darg on the specifics of that. The only thing I'll say is there were concepts, in the $900 to $1 million range that included public restrooms, and I'm gonna, I guess, make a guess that this does not include that.
It says it doesn't.
Correct. We were given a range of possible costs, and I think 500,000 is like right in the middle,
Okay.
and that didn't include that.
Okay. So if we don't get funding and DDA says that they will pay $200,000, the only other source aside from city money, which I wouldn't super be a fan of, would be community development block grant funds, because it is on the south side of the road and would qualify. But how many years would it of saving up? That'd be a substantial amount of time, wouldn't it?
If you were to do, if it was a $500,000 or $900,000 project, yes, it would take multiple years.
When are we expecting to hear back on the two grants?
Both opportunities we should hear back on sometime in September. Although I will say the federal process is much murkier. They tell us we'll hear in September. They might not pass a budget this year. Who knows?
It's a moving target.
Yes.
I would almost be in favor of passing all of these with the condition on this one that the engineering work and cost doesn't begin until we hear back positively, if that makes sense to anybody. Leave it open to everyone else's thoughts for now, but that, I understand the point of wanting to get it done for the future, but it's also a chunk of money that it could be a while before we get there, and things would have changed by then. So that's just my thought, is wait for a positive return, and then we can, if this is already approved, you can start spending, basically.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Resnick. Yeah, that's perfect, because that leads right into my question. Because I interpreted from our packet that it needed to be shovel ready, or needed to be, we needed to have taken this step tonight in order to, be eligible for these grants. Now you use the word, it'd be to our advantage. I guess just clarify, is it an advantage? It's a relative term, so elaborate on that. And just while you're at it, what Councilman Gottschall is suggesting, would that, basically de facto negate, can we get away with that? Like,
Yeah.
hey, if this doesn't happen next month, we're kind of like not excited about it anymore. But we've got to commit to it. Clean,
No.
you know what I'm saying? Clean this up.
I do understand the
Okay,
question.
thanks.
No, it would not be a deal breaker. Let's say theoretically this was declined tonight. That's not a deal breaker on these funding opportunities. The engineering work wouldn't be done by the time we get these awards anyways. Really, this just gives us a little bit of a head start on the work. No, I do not think it would be a deal breaker. But the other thing I wanted to add is one of the benefits of doing this engineering work, to a certain degree, almost regardless of whether we get the funding, is that we still get access to the information and get it compiled in a way that we can use when we're ready. A great example of such a project was actually the sidewalk project on the south side of Pontiac Trail that we did this year. That was actually engineered in 2018. So when you get the work done, you get the surveying done, you get the topography, you get the ground core samples, all of these things, it's not like it's just throwing money down the drain. We really wouldn't get into the designing aspects of, I'd say significant expenses until after we've heard anyways. And I think we could certainly, pump the brakes on this, and we would act from a management perspective with some discretion of, we're not looking to spend $40,000 in a day just because we were authorized to do so. But it's a very fair question, and no, we would not be necessarily disqualified if we didn't start engineering tonight.
Okay. Yeah, and I picked up on that point you made that, there's distinct advantages to doing this work. So with that all said, do we need to, sounds like you're already on guard for what Councilman Gottschall was suggesting, so I don't need an amendment or anything. Because I'm ready to support these, with that, eye on it next month, to kind of re-talk about it too. Does it need to be amended to?
You have to amend the motion, absolutely.
You would have to amend the motion, and you could vote on these individually. When we were prepared for that to be a possible outcome, if you all would like to do so, vote on each project individually.
I'll defer that to you doing that part, though, Councilman Gottschall.
Do we have any further comments on the existing motion?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Maybe this question is more for Tim. I see, looking at farther on in our agenda, we have another item that we did bid out, and looks like we're saving about $60,000 by bidding that project out. Given that these sidewalks are close to $100,000 combined, why didn't we possibly bid this one out?
Time, just time from my perspective, if you want sidewalks completed yet. We'd like to get 12 Mile done this year yet, and I don't have time to,
So how many hours would you say it took to bid out the project that we're gonna save $60,000 on?
From our perspective?
Yeah.
30 hours.
30 hours to save $60,000?
That's to bid it out from my perspective, and
So,
yeah, but that's
assuming possibly we'd get the same 15% savings, would 30 hours be worth saving $15,000?
it's a matter of looking forward. I guess if you need to do all of those, that's your prerogative.
I'm just asking you.
If you're asking my opinion,
if we just would have gone with Hubbard, Roth, and Clark on the next one, we'd be paying an extra $60,000.
if that's the way you look at it.
Just to add a little bit more color to this particular conversation, for the two DDA-related projects, actually Tim was not responsible for requesting those bids. That was something that Laura and I worked on. And that was really, the core of it's based on the understanding that the HRC contract was bid out, and they were selected as the
Engineer of record.
The engineer of record for the city. So in the sake of efficiency, as Mr. Sigma mentioned, HRC's been involved with all of these projects that we're bringing forward.
I'm in support of all the projects.
I'm just trying to explain
I know
how
we
we
discussed bidding larger projects out, and I would think that if one of these came in front of us for $20,000, I wouldn't ask the question. I'd be fine just approving it as is. the fact that you lumped all of them together and you're close to 100,000 makes me wonder if it would have made sense for us to spend a few extra hours to bid it out to possibly save $15,000.
I'll answer, let me step in and provide a little bit of additional answer from administration's perspective on this. We have an engineer of record for handling routine business, and we've had direction from council on whether we can, on larger projects, larger road projects, for example, and things of that nature, go out for bid. And we've done that in individual circumstances for larger bids. If we start to go out for bid for every piece of engineering work that we have, it's going to be ruinous to Tim Sickma's time and impact operations in the Department of Public Works without a doubt. And this is a smaller set of projects. Ergo, we did not bid out those projects because of that limitation. We came to you previously for an additional resource for Tim because he's already got too much to do. If we start bidding out every piece of engineering work, it's going to be worse. And we're going to start to lose impacts in other areas.
That's the
so
timing.
that's my answer on that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one final comment on the existing motion. Will, if it gets approved for the West End Commons, I understand we have no GIS data as to the storm sewer and some of the utilities there. Will all that be added to the GIS database if it gets done?
Yes.
Was that part of the engineering proposal?
It wasn't specifically part of the proposal, but that's something we've been working with HRC for doing that regardless. So yes, any new data can be added into the system.
And then a question on both the funding sources for the construction piece of it. That would be the ARPA funding from the federal government as well as the RAP funding from the state. Would engineering, would we be able to go back and claim part of it against the grant?
That's a good question, and I honestly don't know the answer right offhand. We can look into that. I would think that it could be, but I'm just not certain. I can follow up with that.
I know they're two separate funding sources and they may have separate rules, but.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to amend the recommendation to put a condition on the West End Commons proposal that any planning, design expenses are postponed until we hear positively on the grant funding.
I'll second that.
So we have to vote on the amended motion.
Did we discuss it first?
Yeah, discuss it first. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So does that, going back to what I was asking, that doesn't hurt our grant hopefulness?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. That's good then.
But,
Oh,
can I just
Yeah.
ask a question real quick? Just to clarify, is this amended motion, is it not including, I guess, the surveying and the topographic, surveying aspects of the project, or?
So that was going to be why I wanted to speak, is to clarify, this is, so why I said planning, design, because it calls for in the scope, putting together plans, we'll postpone that until we hear back. But for data purposes, like you pointed out, it makes sense to do the borings and that kind of stuff. We'll do the survey, the borings, the important stuff like the background, but don't spend money on putting together plans until we know if we're going to do this thing.
Understood.
I'm good.
Councilman Sharp?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I don't really understand the amendment. If we vote just procedural, don't we need to just pull the whole thing off and start over again? I mean, we're amending something that makes it a whole new piece of, we're just voting on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the entire thing?
We vote on the amended motion, which would be to separate the first two projects.
No, that's not what he said.
Clarify the third, well, clarifying the third.
The way we're voting on we should be voting on the amendment first, which is to amend the entire thing. So all three would be approved at the same time, but there would be the condition, as they do with site plan reviews, essentially, in my mind. We're approving this as long as you do A, B, and C. Well, in this case, it's just A, don't spend the money until we know we're getting money,
So we vote, we're voting on the amendment, and then we vote again on the entire motion?
Yes.
Including the amendment?
So amended motion.
Yeah.
We're
We're
voting.
going to add language into the first motion, and then that's, our first vote will just be to add language.
Yeah.
And the second motion will be to vote on the entire expenditure. So are we under discussion on adding the language?
Yep.
Can I have the
Yes.
floor?
You got it. You say whatever you
So I guess I support a lot of good points. First of all, Councilmember Bierman's question on cost certainly rings bell with me. But I do think that our time, DPW's time, we've been through a lot of discussions here and in the chamber and elsewhere about DPW's ability to get done the vast amount of work that we've laid on them. And to me, this is one where we've established an engineer record, and these are kind of low dollar items. And I think Hubbell, Roth & Clark is still on notice based on what we're about to vote on, item number 4. So they still know they've got to be efficient and come with quality bids for whatever it is. So I don't have a problem with voting on Hubbell, Roth & Clark. But I do agree with Assistant City Manager Benson's comments on we can use this data regardless if we get the 500,000 or not. So I don't think we need an amendment. I'd be in favor of splitting them all up and voting separately if we want to do that, but I'm not sure the amendment, in my mind, really adds anything to the value of the 3. We're still, even if we just say, hey, let's put pavers down over there and we'll spend it out of city budget, we're still going to need to know what's underneath there. And that's going to cost money to find out what's underneath that land. And maybe not $40,000, but I think the data we would gather for $40,000 will be worthwhile down the road, even if it doesn't happen as part of the federal grant that we're hoping to get, which could be years away. So I support the 40. I don't really support the amendment, unfortunately. So that's how I'll be voting no on the amendment, but I'll be voting yes for the 3. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. To clarify, under the amendment, they wouldn't be allowed to do the survey and the borings and all the background work. They just wouldn't be putting together the actual plans for the park. So we're still collecting the information you want, but of that 40,000, let's say that data collection is a portion of it. The rest is the plan funds. We're saving that a little bit until we know.
Maybe we need the amendment read again.
I was going to try to offer an idea on that front.
City Manager, can I ask one question? Maybe it'll build on your idea. Couldn't we just direct administration to do a phased approach, approve all 3, and then just, we don't, we wait until the funding, the RAP funding is announced in September. ARPA is also September, October, I think, right?
Right.
And they have to spend those funds. So we'll know yes or no by then, right? Could we do this administratively in some way?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that administration is kind of on the same page as Councilmember Gottschall's already brought up here, that we talked, and Drew talked a few minutes ago about the fact we could defer action on the conceptual design work and just get the preliminary stuff done, and just wait for the other additional work on developing the details of the project until after we get some funding decisions. That's one option. And then I was going to offer, if you wanted to proceed with the amendment, I could come up with a suggestion for the language that might maybe clear it up or it might not. And if you want that, I can offer it, or we can.
For Councilman Gottschall?
I mean, I like making sure everything's in writing, so it's nice to say we'll do it administratively, but I like knowing that we voted on it. I mean, there were things, to go to other projects along Wixom Road, there were other things that should have been done administratively, i.e. glass on those concrete buildings that wasn't done. So I'd rather vote on it, make sure it's in there, and it is the directive at that point. So I would rather go about it this way.
I agree, but I would like to hear the Steve version of the amendment.
So just try to put a finer point on it if I can. Something along the lines of what you're looking for is just adding, and for the West End Commons area, for a total not to exceed $40,110, with any detailed planning for the content of the project being contingent upon receipt of a funding award. Something akin to that would be the starting point to try to get it a little bit clearer.
Seems okay.
Does that work?
It's your amendment, I'll defer to you again.
Yeah, I mean,
Because otherwise we'll be guessing at how to put it.
my wording, your wording, we all understand it.
I'm good either way.
He's recording it, the clerk is typing it, so it'll all be in there.
As long as you're comfortable with that, because that's why I want to make sure that you know, I don't want to have to interpret it later and get it interpreted wrong, so I'm trying to get down.
All right.
I can support that if that was the intent of the amendment, that we can still award the beginning of the contract, beginning of the engineering work
Yes.
for the key feasibility piece, and then any, so, okay.
I'll take a
We need
stab
it
at
read
reading it.
again? Yeah.
Yes, I will read it, okay. We have a recommendation to accept Hubble, Roth, and Clark's proposals for design engineering services for a sidewalk improvement project along the north side of 12 Mile Road between Napier Road and Helfer Boulevard for a total not to exceed $20,280. A sidewalk improvement project along the north side of Pontiac Trail between Chambers and Wixom Road for a total not to exceed $28,590. And for the West End Commons area for a total not to exceed $40,100 with any detailed plans for the project to be contingent upon the award of federal and state funding, or I should say, funding sources.
And approve the associated.
And to approve the associated budget amendments. Did that come out?
I think that's
close
what Keenan
to-
said.
That works.
Sorry.
It's a winner.
Okay.
We gotta go back to the voting on the
Yeah.
amendment, then do that.
Yeah.
You gotta read that whole thing again.
Right. So, we have the motion for the amended motion on the floor, the second, and all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, amended motion passes.
The amendment to motion passes. Now you have to vote on the motion as amended.
Now we have to vote on the motion as amended. We have it on the floor already. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right.
It's okay, he doesn't have to read that again?
Yes. Madam Clerk, do you have that?
I've got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. That was a tongue twister. All right, we move on to new business item number 4. A recommendation to accept the proposal from the Umlor Group of Wixom, Michigan for the design and construction engineering services for the Loon Lake Road and Cliffs of Loon Lake subdivision road improvement project for a cost not to exceed $120,000 for design engineering and $190,000 for construction engineering. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, we have motion support. Tim, you're up again.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So what you have before is the design and construction engineering for Loon Lake Road and Cliffs of the Loon Lake. We did take that out to bid for engineering services, and it did take about 30 hours for that. Now, please keep in mind that that doesn't, onboarding new engineers, there's a lot of unknowns that occur with that. And I don't know what those are, and I don't really know how much time that's going to commit to over the next 2 years of this project. But with that said, we have vetted the Umler Group, and we feel confident that the Umler Group can do this work. And we recommend that they'll be doing our design and construction engineering for Loon Lake Road and Cliffs of Loon Lake. Yeah, Cliffs, the roads in Cliffs. Put that up.
Thank you. Are we, with Maple, we had some expansion work and whatnot, is this just gonna be engineering for replacement, basically?
There's that would depend on the engineering.
Okay.
And we wouldn't know. I guess I would like to see some pulverizing in this area because of the road itself, but you know, that remains to be seen.
Okay. And then we spoke a few months ago about the county portion of Loon Lake Road. Have we spoken with the county to encourage them to join in on the project?
We encourage them, and if we joined in with that project, it would end up becoming a road commission project, and that would put it out another 2 years. What we did agree to was that they were going to do maintenance on that road basically simultaneously of our work next year. So they did commit to working out the details to get from Benstein into Wixom. So
Okay.
That's
all I
that
was
was
looking
discussed.
for. Maintenance on their end would be replacing at this point, but at least I'll do something. Thank you.
Yep.
Maybe as a further comment, we found out this morning at a meeting that the Wixom Road repaving was on the maintenance funds, not federal funds. From Road Commission of Old County, so hopefully it's similar to that.
With
That
limited
condition when it's
expenses
done.
from Wixom.
Yeah, with, yeah, very limited.
Very limited.
Councilman Flynn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Resnick. You know, Tim, we could have just had you sit up here tonight, I guess. You know, we got some open seats.
Appreciate that.
Been here the whole time. The City of Wixom Roadway Assessment Management Plan, how does that, is that a fiscal plan versus like what PASER is, more of an assessment? As I was reading this, like, I was trying to figure out what's kind of how they're related or may be related.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little quickie on that?
So back in 2017, we came up with an asset management plan for the roads, and what we had agreed to at that point was to do a mix of fixes. So some of the fixes were to do portions like we did on Potter Road this year. We negotiated some costs with the contractor to add some value to Potter Road for the remaining 3 or 4 years that we need to get it into our budget. We also do pothole repairs in different areas. Our group, DPW, has tried chip seal, for example, and we did some seal coating across the street over this past 5 years, that just trying to see if there was some less expensive ways to prolong the life of these roads. And that was all included in the asset management plan that was developed in 2017. Every so often, we have to do that again, and we're coming up on that soon. But the state has approved what we have, and we have to have that approval before we really work on roads to accept Act 51 funding for those roads. And that's where we're primarily getting the funding for this, is through the state Act 51 program. And so we have to have that asset management plan in place in order to do the work and get reimbursed for it.
Okay. So PASER is like a tool that's part of this?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the assessment of the road itself. The asset management plan is
Now
the
what we
assessment
do.
of the program itself.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you. That was
Yeah,
great.
no problem.
All right, no further comments. We have a recommendation to accept the proposal from the Umlar Group of Wixom, Michigan for the design and construction engineering services for the Loon Lake Road and Cliffs of Loon Lake Subdivision Road Improvement Project for a cost not to exceed $120,000 for design engineering and $190,000 for construction engineering. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. All right, new business item number 5, recommendation to accept a permanent road easement along Beck Road granted by property owners at 28847 Beck Road for the future Beck Road project for a total cost of $34,305 from the LDFA Construction right-of-way account 250-551-971-000. Have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? No discussion, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You've got.
I was an aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was an aye in there, too.
That was the easiest one
Yeah,
tonight.
we've been going through these right-of-way easement acquisitions for the last
After 4, we're just
months.
like, what?
Okay, that brings the second call to the public. I will not reread all the rules for call to the public, but please, if you do come to the podium, state your name and address, and you can speak anything on your mind. Anybody for the second call to the public? And our students left
Yeah.
before we could.
They must have been tumblers. They must have been their clerks or something, or their interns.
Oh.
Left with Tumblr.
All right, we'll move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we have work anniversaries that are on the city manager update ranging from 3 years up to 17 years, with Jason Brittmeyer and our fire department being the 17-year mark. So congratulations to everybody that's celebrating a work anniversary. We appreciate all your hard work on behalf of the city and the years of dedicated service that are reflected here, and there's many. We appreciate it very much. And that sort of segues into the second point, which I provided a hiring update in the city manager update as well, and the purpose of that was to just because of the sheer volume of activity that we've been going through with hiring, I wanted to provide an update to mayor and council about that, and we've got a listing of the different departments and hiring that we've gone through with the DPW full-time equipment operator that's accepted and started, a temporary full-time position that we're in the process of getting filled, the finance position, the account clerk, where we had a transfer from my office and the city manager's office that filled that position. Fire, lots of activity with a full-time secretary that was approved by mayor and council that had in the past been part-time. So with that, they've got 8 full-time positions now in the fire department after additional hirings for firefighters as well. We've got a variety of auxiliary and paid-on-call hires. We had 10 auxiliary firefighters that were hired. We had 3 paid-on-call firefighters that were hired. The count on those are auxiliary firefighters at 6, and the paid-on-call firefighters are at 5 plus 6, which are also full-time firefighters, so they serve a dual role. So we've got 11 total in paid-on-call. So there's been a lot of activity in the fire department. The police department, if we want to get into detail there, I'm going to have to defer to Police Chief Langmeyer on that, but we've got many service aides that were hired, cadets that we have started through the academy process as per the mayor and council authorization in the past, patrol officers that have been hired, promotions, lots of activity in the police department as well. The part-time floater position that we are proceeding with in City Hall is in process. And the final thing, the city manager office secretary position, as I mentioned, there was a transfer from the CMO to finance. We're taking a look at that position and seeing how we want to proceed on that front. And I bring that up for 2 reasons, just talking about the general volume of activity that's been going on. And then I want to kind of compare and contrast that with our experience here in the city of Wixom and what other communities are going through in terms of their hiring successes. I just attended a regional meeting with Congresswoman Haley Stevens and her office, as well as multiple members of the city management community and elected official community that attended that meeting. And one of the themes that came out of that was just a general difficulty that other cities are experiencing with attracting people to public service, inability to fill police department positions, inability to fill fire department positions. And that was a very, very common issue for multiple people that were there. They just having a difficult time attracting people to public service. We're blessed and lucky in the city of Wixom that we have not had that experience, and I want to point out that I think that speaks well of the elected official support for, as well as the execution within management by department heads in the departments in terms of turning Wixom into a positive place to work, a place with a good work culture. We do not have those experiences currently. We continue to have the ability to fill those positions. We're hiring more people than we ever had in the fire department. We're continuing to fill positions in the police department. We're continuing to fill frontline positions in finance and other places. And it's something that I'm endlessly grateful for, because this is not the case in other areas and other communities. We're very fortunate because of good work that's being done by department heads and other people within the city employment of making it a positive work environment and making it a place people want to come to work still in public service. So I just wanted to bring that up and wanted to take a few minutes to talk about that and point it out to Mayor and Council, and it's to your work that's being done, as well as the management work that's being done in the departments that's making that possible. And it's something that we're lucky to have that experience, and we're very fortunate, and I do appreciate it. Every time we go through a hiring process, we continue to have good candidates and continue to hire people for our positions, which we're fortunate to have that outcome. So that's the only thing that I wanted to say on that front. There's a variety of things in the dates to remember aspect of things here that you can take a look at. If there's any questions that I can address tonight, I'd be happy to try. If there's anything I can, we'll get back to you on something else. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Assistant City Manager.
Deputy Assistant, that's whatever. Just 2 quick things. City Manager Brown talks about hiring, and so just as a reminder, the city is partnering with the Lakes Area Chamber for our annual job fair this September on the 20th. It'll be in the morning, both in-person and hybrid opportunities. This is a similar event to what we've offered in the spring, same partnership. This year we've elected to move it to the fall as opposed to the spring to kind of better differentiate our own event from a lot of similar offerings in the late spring. So if you happen to know anyone or like folks that you're involved with that are looking to hire, please share the word and have them get in contact with me. The other thing, just highlighting a few fun successes, People Driven Technologies had their groundbreaking on August 17th, which is a very nice and well-attended event. Yukon America, which is another development that's been going in along Alpha Court. We are scheduled for their ribbon cutting on the 28th, which is also very exciting. And then we've recently received a submission, and I'm optimistic that you all will be seeing or hearing about another development on Alpha Court within the next few months in terms of you getting ready to move forward. So just to highlight a lot of very exciting things happening in that district. I know the property's been vacant for a long time, and we are thrilled to see the companies and the uses that are going in there. And that's all I have.
Councilman Gatto, you had a question?
Yeah, just regarding the Alpha Drive comment, was that what was in our planning commission minutes?
No, that's a whole separate, that's a discussion about the ordinance.
Yeah, but the business owner that was there, so
Yeah.
what you're referring to is in addition to even that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hasn't reached that point yet.
And just to echo City Manager and Assistant City Manager's comments, I attended the regional meeting with Mr. Brown, and talking to the mayors and city managers for the 20 minutes beforehand, before Councilman Stevens stepped in, that was the #1 issue on their agendas and on their minds, was hiring and the difficulty, and the fact that nobody's going into public service anymore. So kudos to our teams and
Absolutely.
management of it. Our supervisors as well. Right?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Team out.
All right.
Sure.
Council comments. We'll start with Councilman Gatto.
Thank you. Related to the hiring bit, I know, and I'm not sure if we've done anything recently with it, but we've talked about positions and obviously the lack of people going into public service and whatnot, but it might be a good idea to come up with an intern program plan. Yeah, I mean, doing similar thing obviously with the service aides going to the academy, but if we can get some great interns, and that's how I started in the city when I was in high school working for the appraiser's office when we did that in-house. But I think that might be good for high school students that are locally around or college students during the summer and help alleviate some of the kind of project work that a lot of our staff spends mindless hours on. Then my other question, with school restarting in under a week, I cannot recall, was the Hawk Light in after school, the Wixom Hawk Light, did that go in after school was out or before?
It was before.
It was before, it was not
Before school was out? Okay. It was just my thought that if it was after, and I couldn't recall exactly the timeline, that we might want to pay, we should probably pay close attention anyway,
Yeah.
but between the trains, people pressing the button to walk across, it's probably going to be a nightmare for the first few weeks, so just something to think about. Thank you.
Good. Councilman Snyder.
Thank you. I did want to ask Chief Langmeyer to tell us a little bit, if he can, or as much as he can, about our bank robbery this week in Wixom and Middle Line.
Well, I can't get into too many details about it because it's being presented to the grand jury here in the very near future. The Assistant U.S. Attorney, their office is handling it because this gentleman is responsible not only for a bank robbery here, but in Novi also. So they're going to charge for both. But I got to give the one thing I want to tell you is that the work that our people did. First of all, to find him. But the bigger part of it is Detective Sergeant Caldwell, Lieutenant Bradley overseeing the scene. We only had 2 officers working that day and 1 detective. And the detective was Detective Sergeant Bradley. The work that Officer Cheesebro did, Officer Westenberg, Officer Bloink, who's in training, so he doesn't really count there, but with Detective Sergeant Caldwell, Lieutenant Bradley, the work that they all did, we ended up calling in Sergeant King and Officer Tabor out of training to come in and help us that day. They did an amazing job. Everything had to stop for about 3 days, but the work they did led to not only this gentleman being charged here, but for the crimes that happened in Novi. They did a stellar job, and I'm proud of them.
Were anybody harmed in the whole Novi or Wixom?
I'm not too up to speed on the Novi case, but here in Wixom, no, the weapon was just brandished. We did recover the weapon and the money that was taken.
Some scared folks, I'm sure.
I'm sure it would have scared me, that's for sure.
Thank you, Chief. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Other than that, just, Councilman Gottschall mentioned school is back in on Monday, so everybody watch out for those little sprouts running around. And happy Labor Day. Thank you.
Councilman Barrett.
Thank you. I just had 2 quick questions, and maybe for Tim, maybe for Drew, maybe for Laura. The airline trail where the concrete got fixed, are they going to paint it to match, or do they make more of that green paint?
Apparently, they don't make it quick enough, but yes, that's the intent. There were some fractures in that there, so we asked for it to be replaced, and now we're waiting on the paint. It's on back order, but it will be repainted in the same color of the paint that's there now.
And there's no more boring being done by utility work under there?
No, there isn't. And the gray piece that's further west, that was done by someone else as part of the right-of-way permit, and we'll be having them replace that as well.
Okay. And then, thank you for that. I was just curious. And then the Longhorn Steakhouse and Chipotle, I remember when that was given temporary occupancy, it was indicated they were going to still finish up like their little fencing and some brick around the sign. And it looks like they just stopped doing anything. And do we know when they're going to finish their landscaping?
I believe all of the current work is related to the Chipotle portion of the project. Admittedly, they've been moving very slowly. They do not have any form of certificate of occupancy for that section, and all of the, they are required to complete their site plan in order to get those. Oftentimes, we'll grant temporary certificates of occupancy when you're, in progress. In that particular case, a number of things they still have outstanding. They've got some work to do. I do not know the timeline right offhand of when some of those final improvements are going to happen, but that is something we can look into.
Because I noticed that the top of the fencing in front of the Longhorn was never done, just like the fencing in front of the Chipotle. It just has like red cups sticking out where the fence is supposed to go in. And then I believe there was supposed to be bricking or something around the sign, because the sign just kind of looks unfinished the way it's stuck into the ground.
I will look into that, and we can report back on that.
Okay, appreciate that. And then lastly, yes, keep an eye out for children. I'm sure my wife is thrilled that she'll have 5 of them in school starting soon, 4 at Wixom Elementary. So.
Lots of lunches today.
No, lunches are free now.
Oh, that's right.
Breakfast
too, I believe.
Yeah, that's.
Councilman Sharp.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I know Principal Russell's really thrilled you have 5 kids there.
Only 4 at Wixom Elementary.
That's not for the. You don't need to put that in the minutes. I just wanted to comment on City Manager Brown's hiring report. What a really good news and really indicative of the quality of team he has. And we've made this place. We collectively have made this place people want to work. It sounds like so. That's good. Good. A testament to everybody, the work we're doing, the the place we have to live, and also good news. Thank you. However, some people don't, not everybody lives, some people die, and then you go to the columbarium. Tim, I'm sorry to ask you again. I know I just said we piled on all this work on the DPW. How are we doing on the columbarium pavers?
We call the landscaping folks weekly on that, and yeah, we have excuse after excuse, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to approach that now, because he has the materials there. We think he's vested, and he hasn't charged us for those. We haven't paid for him in there, so
they are his. We
they are
can't even
his.
take them and start working
and
with
that was the next step that we were looking at, is getting someone else to do it for us, but we haven't been able to do that yet either. So the company that was going to do it, or is supposed to do that, has had some difficulties in the family, and that was a month and a half ago. So we're still trying to work with them, but yeah, at some point we have to get that done.
Okay, thank you. Seems like there's something else, but that's good for tonight. Thank you.
Beautiful permanent home for your resident.
All right. Tim, I got another additional question on Michigan Airlines. You should just stand up there. Now you're coming eastbound on a bicycle on the I call it the Renton Loop, right?
Okay.
Before you get to Wixom Road, there is a series of two bushes that are so occluding the vision onto what's coming down the safety path on southbound Wixom Road that I almost got into a near accident, and I've seen a couple near misses. Is there any way we can cut that back 10, 15 feet with the DPW?
That's on the west side.
It's on the north side of the Renton Loop trail, right before it T-bones into Wixom Road.
We can look at that.
All right.
I guess just a question, if you don't mind on that. What were was it bikers coming out without waiting for the signal?
No, it was bikers coming southbound on the trail, which cannot be viewed by people that are coming eastbound on the Renton Loop before it T-bones into Wixom Trail.
So
Bikers, yeah, two bikers.
almost in.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
So
just
it's a
my
blind
thought.
intersection.
If it was cars, it's almost like the M5 intersection where they put up the snow fences so you can't see it.
Yeah, right. Force you to slow down.
I didn't want to have bikers like, I got a minute, I'm going to try and drive through there.
No, even if you're walking your bike, you can almost get hit by someone coming south on Wixom Road Trail. And then, again, a shout out to Parks and Rec, DPW, and all of our sponsors for the great Summer of Concert series. What a great summer we had. It was just wonderful. And by extending it, those couple concerts, I got a lot of area residents and not even from Wixom that come to ours now because it's a much longer running series than the rest of the community. So great job, and hopefully we can get a lot of good sponsorships next year as well with all these new companies coming in. All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, meeting closed.